Having said that, Kino der Toten is the closest map to achieving the similar status of perfection Der Riese achieved. There isn't much else to say about Kino that I haven't already said about Der Riese, though there are some things that this map does better than the previously mentioned ones as well as the maps that came after it. Beginning with the horror element, they somehow made a map set in an abandoned theatre during the daytime uncomfortably creepy. It nails the uncanny feeling exceptionally well, with its empty hallways littered with torn and dirty posters. The stage, seating area and the balconies are all either extremely damaged or completely collapsed, and rubble litters the entirety of the map. Dust clouds intermittently pop up here and there, and the gentle chiming of the chandeliers make for a very calm but surreal atmosphere. Even being in the alleyway where you're in broad daylight is freaky because there isn't a single human soul to be seen, and the building itself, while badly damaged, still stands firm, with God rays coming in from the holes in the ceiling, creating a sense of isolation and entrapment. Not to mention the various pods containing deformed humans and potential zombies placed around the stage area, creating a sense of unease. The small rooms you can be potentially teleported to are also quite jarring and terrifying, and are likely designed that way to make you want to leave them as soon as possible. I could go on, but I am cautious of the length of this video. So to sum it up, it's the Uncanny Valley feeling on steroids. Easily a 6 out of 6 for how unnerving this map is. Kino's layout offers a whole host of opportunities. If you think about it, when you open all the doors, it almost functions like a 3-lane multiplayer map. You have one lane leading across the alleyway and supply room, one along the lounge, bar and dressing area, and one leading right down the middle, connecting the entrance hall and stage. Designing the map like this allows for an easy time training with several people, as it's easy to run 2 zombie trains around the 2 outer lanes. The stage itself is large enough to fit in 2 zombie trains, one going around the front row seats and around the podium, and one just behind it going around the backstage area. Not to mention the variety of camping spots, like literally where Jug is on the map, in a branching path from the doorway between the catwalk and the entrance area. Similarly to the catwalk in Der Riese, the zombies funnel in through a narrow gap that makes it easy to mow them down. The alleyway is also an easily defensible position right at the end by the window in the wall. So long as you don't open the door to the supply room, the zombies will only come in from 2 directions, and one of those is easily maintainable due to there being a barrier there. The rest funnel in behind you in a narrow pattern. Everything is easily accessible because the map is not too huge, and Pack-a-Punch being in an area that is free from zombies but only for a limited time before you're put back into the action makes for a nice change of pace. However, a sense of urgency to pack-a-punch as many weapons as possible comes into play too, requiring some coordination from your teammates not only to get you all to the room in one go, but also to allow everyone to get their turn in. It's a fun, chaotic design and really lends itself to numerous amounts of gameplay styles. Traps are nicely placed as well, with one being in nearly every corner of the map. There is a fire trap in the first room on the left, a turret in the bar and on the podium on the stage, and an electric trap in the door between the catwalk and the entrance. It's an exceptionally well-designed map and earns itself a 6 out of 6 in that regard. Gameplay-wise, there is a whole new arsenal of weapons to play around with. Cold War-era weapons added a whole new shake-up to how the gameplay took place. One of the main changes was the preference between close quarters with the Olympia and long range with the M14 early game. Both costed the same, but asked of different playstyles. Snipers became much more viable due to some being semi-auto. Not to mention, the LMGs here became far more usable because of the fact they were mag-fed and were much lighter than their World War II counterparts. Though the most notable changes came with the pack-a-punch guns. While LMGs and SMGs essentially got the usual pack-a-punch treatment of bigger mags, higher reserves and more damage, rifles also got this treatment but had added underbarrel attachments. For example, the AK-47 got the flamethrower, the M16 became full auto and had the grenade launcher, and and the AUG or AUG had the Master Key shotgun. This really gave an incentive to using rifles because of their extra capabilities unique to those weapons. It was a welcome addition that really spiced up the integral element of the game mode, which was zombie killing. Onto traps, the turrets within the stage and the bar are pretty subpar traps. They fall off quite quickly as the rounds progress and end up just being a supporting trap that assists in dealing damage to the undead. But thankfully, the electric trap and furnace traps retain their high damage output and killing capabilities, and those two traps can be pretty useful if used on a large group of zombies. The Pack-a-Punch puzzle is pretty simple enough and makes access to the machine much easier, and the added cooldown of the teleporter makes it so choosing when to use it requires some strategy and planning. The ray gun makes a return, but the Wonder Wuffer DG2 doesn't, and is instead replaced by its Sigma male Chad brother, the Thunder Gun. Even saying its name makes you feel powerful. This thing sends zombies flying and insta-kills anything in front of you in a split second after the trigger is pulled. It looks awesome, both in its design and when it's fired, and it's probably one of the most fun guns to use in the entire Zombies game mode. To balance it though, it has a small ammo count and mag size, so it's best utilized on large groups of zombies to maximize its effectiveness. In terms of the zombies, they cannot spawn within the bounds of the map until you turn the power on. When you do, Nova Crawlers begin to spawn alongside the regular zombies, more on them in a second. When the stage area is open, the zombies can spawn in the seating areas, but it takes them some time to reach and climb over the rubble around that part to be able to start running after you. It takes them roughly the same time to break down a fully built barrier as it does to run around this area before officially getting into the map, in which time they can be potentially picked off. This version of spawning within the bounds of the map is much better than the zombies spawning directly in places where they can immediately attack you. The Nova Crawlers have a similar function where they have to climb down the walls of the building before getting to the floor where they can move towards you and hit you. During this time, they can be safely picked off. This still plays into a sense of impending doom coming after you, but still has those elements of base defense built in. Even though they aren't breaking down a barrier, there is still some time to prevent them ever becoming a threat. Whereas in Shino Numa, the zombies could spawn into the swamp within seconds and instantly be a threat to the player. Kino is an example of how this is done right, and unfortunately later maps don't seem to replicate this. The Nova Crawlers are the first of a series of experimentations Treyarched with boss-type zombies. They are fast but weaker than regular zombies and are actually small enough to be jumped over. When they die, they create a yellow smoke cloud that impairs vision, and the resulting explosion can slightly damage you. They are a nice addition to the pool of zombies and make it so jumping is a use. The dog rounds make a return and function relatively the same, serving to change the pace every now and again and rewarding survival of this round with the max ammo. Kino's gameplay is truly a gem to behold, much like Doris, and deserves a 6 out of 6 for making such a diverse experience. I think the replayability explains itself. Diverse playstyles with several training methods and camping spots, a newly diversified and unique arsenal, more zombie types, and is a breeze with friends. 6 out of 6 without a doubt. Like I said earlier, Kino is the only map that mirrors Doris's perfected status, while still being simple enough to pick up casually and enjoy. This map humbly earns its 6 out of 6 score for every element: the horror, the gameplay, the new features, enemies and weapons, and the map design.
Gentlemen, at times like these, our capacity to retaliate must be, and has to be, massive to deter all forms of aggression. Gentlemen, lock and load. Viva la revolución!
5 is where Treyarch's streak of perfect maps ends and the problems begin to start. That's not to say 5 is a bad map, it has something for everybody, but it doesn't quite hit the same level of good as Kino or Doris or even maps before those. Beginning with horror and map layout, 5 is both unique and strange to talk about in both these elements. It's basically 3 tiny maps layered on top of each other with elevators separating each level. The top part of the map is an office area with a room full of large tables and isn't really scary outside of the uncanny valley feeling of being in an empty building. The window smashing sounds of the zombies breaking through is quite startling to begin with, but once all the glass is gone, it never comes back. It is a nice initial touch though, however, other than that, it's not nightmare fuel in the slightest. The design of this area is pretty shit, to put it plainly. On either side of the main room is two semi-wide corridors, about the width of 3 to 4 zombies, and is definitely not ideal for training. That, and there are gates that thin the corridors to the size of one player on either side of it, making it even more bothersome and risky, especially at higher rounds. The big room with all the tables is not much better. I say that it's big, though most of the space is taken up by the tables and it thins the room to what amounts to intersecting paths, none of which are wide enough to create a decent training spot. The level below is the main pentagon room and has the best training spot in the map. You literally run in a pentagon around the pentagon, and it has enough intersecting paths and a decent amount of wiggle room to keep a train going for a decent amount of time. It's much riskier than previous spots on other maps, but it is doable, and the added teleporter in the middle when the power is turned on makes for a quick escape in case things go wrong. You can set this room up as a camping spot, again by the Juggernog machine, just outside of the Pack-a-Punch room, so long as you don't open the barricade under the stairs. It seems that jug being by camping spots is becoming a common theme. Horror-wise, it's the same situation as the area above it. Gives off a lot of Uncanny Valley vibes, but isn't particularly scary aside from the fact that it's darker than the other room. The bottom level of the map houses the labs, and is probably one of the more interesting parts of the map for both the horror and the map design elements. Horror-wise, it heavily juxtaposes the previous two rooms, actually looking like something out of a nightmare. The hallways are coated in splashes of blood, there are bodies left cut open on surgical tables, animals squealing and flailing, and mysterious rooms and drawings all over the place. The siren lights make it even more chaotic than it already is, which adds to the charm of this level. Design-wise, it's a series of corridors and rooms that interlock with each other. The corridors are more spacious than the ones on the top level, and because they are bigger and interlock, it's easier to survive as there's usually enough room to run around. If things get tense, there are several teleporters around that will take you away from a sticky situation instantly and will potentially teleport you to different levels of the map, though considering the options, this could be a blessing or a curse. Some general comments on the map design: the elevator between the top floor and the Pentagon room is one of the best camping spots ever. If the onslaught gets too much, a cheeky press of the elevator button and down you go. It has a very short cooldown and a low price of 500 points, so on high rounds it's extremely easy to exploit this, especially with 4 people, and combined with the map's wonder weapon, getting to high rounds isn't much trouble. The other elevator leading between the bottom floor and the Pentagon is not ideal for this, as it has a barrier opposite to where it opens out to each floor. The smaller elevator does not have this issue, so the zombies only come from one direction, making it easy to mow them down. Having said all this, considering 2 out of the 3 rooms aren't particularly horrifying, but the lower lab area is quite terrifying, 5 score for horror is a 3 out of 6. In terms of map design, the top floor is quite literally useless aside from the elevator. The Pentagon room has basically everything you could ever want, and the labs are a semi-decent place to run around in. 2 of the 3 rooms have varying utility, one of them has none. So 5's map design also gets a 3 out of 6. 5's gameplay can be quite enjoyable in either playstyle. Camping in the elevator with friends can be exceptionally fun on high rounds, as you might frequently need to use the elevator to avoid being overrun, and the Pentagon's interconnected pathways make for a fun training experience, as making a wrong turn could easily end in a game over. The Winter's Howl was the wonder weapon of this map, and has interesting theming considering the Cold War setting. A weapon that slows enemies and eventually freezes and shatters zombies is essentially a metaphor for the period, though it's a shame that it's not as good as previous wonder weapons. It serves more as a utility tool to get yourself out of sticky situations rather than as a proper zombie killing machine. It is useful for camping in the elevator though, but only in the sense that it provides you wiggle room to get out of being overrun. Other than that, it's not much use. The Pack-a-Punch puzzle is unique in that you have to trigger DEFCON 1 by activating all of the levers around the Pentagon room. Once that's done, you're teleported to the Pack-a-Punch room. Pretty simplistic and allows for an extra room to be accessible, but it will close if there is no one inside it, though that just means one less place for the zombies to come from. The Pentagon Thief was the first change to special rounds and the zombies' experience, and in the case of this map, not for the better. How he functions is he will run around attempting to steal your weapon from you and teleport out of the building. If you kill him before he escapes, you get your weapon back plus a max ammo, and if you kill him before he can take your weapon, he drops a bonfire sail and a max ammo. The only thing that makes this boss awful is the fact that he can take wonder weapons, which could mean thousands upon thousands of points wasted. It can make playing on this map extremely daunting, especially in the earlier rounds. He can be quite easy to counter somewhat at later rounds, but early on he can be a massive annoyance. Besides him, it's a decently fun map for two different playstyles and has some unique quirks to it, so it shall be granted a 4 out of 6. The replayability of this map is somewhat okay. It's got the advantage of not being too complicated and can be fun to test different methods of play, though it doesn't do itself favours in terms of quite literally 33% of the map being useless and having a really annoying boss round enemy. Playing with friends increases the replay value a bit, with the Winter's Howl being a nice utility tool, but that's all there is to offer co-op wise. The replay value of 5 gets a 4 out of 6. Fun, but not a map I'd frequently revisit. Considering the categories clash between whether the map gets a 3 out of 6 or a 4 out of 6, my decision has to unfortunately come down to personal preference. For me, it was an experiment that saw some success, but also some major failures. Therefore, 5 gets a 3 out of 6, as it is markedly different to Kino and provides a far different experience, which can be nice, but also has a lot more annoyances that come with it compared to other maps. Ascension is a map I struggle to find the motivation to play even at the best of times. It's weird because on the one hand I know the map is extremely easy, but on the other there are some annoyances that can make it unenjoyable. With how the map introduces itself when you first spawn in, you'd think this map would be extremely terrifying through and through, and to begin with it is. Everything slowly becomes black and white as you descend into a facility that is slowly shutting itself down and running on backup power. A voice comes through the intercom asking for help and exclaiming that she is coming, and the mechanism must be repaired. This is probably one of the best introductions to a Treyarch Zombies map ever, as every other map just spawns you in with seemingly nothing happening. Seeing everything in black and white is exceptionally jarring considering no other map does this, and the setting of an abandoned yet functional Cosmodrome is very creepy as well. Though I do feel that when the power is turned on and everything starts happening at once, it becomes more chaotic than scary. To put a point towards the map's horror, however, when the map is quiet, it is very creepy and haunting. The only thing I could think would make the map even scarier is the machinery being non-functional. But the spectacle of the rocket taking off or being blown up is also very cool to look at and can get the adrenaline pumping. I'm not going to mention the entire process of the Easter egg of the map, apart from how it contributes to the map's horror. Hearing Samantha Maxis' screams on certain objects that indicate Easter egg steps is very terrifying, and the scream she makes at the end of the Easter egg, which shakes the entire facility and changes the colour of the skybox briefly, makes this map's horror element much more visceral. It even made me feel uncomfortable to continue playing the map beyond the Easter egg, as by that point the Cosmodrome truly feels abandoned after you free Gersh, the man stuck within the mechanism. The map is also much more open than previous maps, and you can see well beyond the immediate bounds of the play area, which interestingly makes you feel more isolated because there is nothing but a vast expanse of land beyond the facility. All these elements combined make Ascension's horror exceptionally solid and earns a rating of 5 out of 6, just missing the perfect score because too much happens after you turn the power on, leaving you more flustered than scared. Map design is an element that Ascension has a hit or miss in. To connect a point from the horror section, the vast openness of the map also plays into how it is designed, with many different training spots specifically for available to you. But from this point is where the positives end. Ascension favors training a lot more than camping, and this is most notable in the fact that there are basically no camping spots, and places where camping might look viable are ruined by barrier placements. There are two spots that are big offenders in this case, namely the door on the ground floor of the spawn room and the lunar lander by Speed Cola. If you don't open the door at spawn and get to the other side of it, all there is down there is one barrier and a set of stairs. If there was only a set of stairs there, this would be an immensely good camping spot. However, the barrier ruins this, as you'd end up having zombies coming from two directions, both from the left and the right side of this room. This is not ideal, as you only really want zombies coming from one direction, though it can theoretically be done. The same goes for the lunar lander by Speed Cola. If it was a dead-end bridge with no barriers and just the lunar lander, it would likely be the best camping spot ever. But because there are barriers on either side at the end of the bridge, it is impossible to camp there because of the amount of directions the zombies can come from. You might recall me noting camping spots on Kino and Shino Numa that have barriers you need to keep in check to make them effective camping spots. However, due to how effortlessly easy it is to train on Ascension, most of these camping spots are redundant in comparison. Speaking of which, two of the most prominent training spots, the room after Stamina Up and the elevated platform by PhD Flopper, have lunar landers in them, so even if you find yourself in a tricky situation, you can easily escape without much effort. On top of having those safeguards, they are the most open spots in the map without much obstacles to get in the way. Considering this, training on Ascension is far more favourable than camping by a large metric. The other two training spots, the Stamina Up room and Under the Rocket by Pack-a-Punch, are more difficult but just as viable spots to train in. They offer more of a challenge to more experienced players who don't want to rely on a crutch that the lunar landers provide. Outside these spots are the insides of buildings, and the majority of these are very thin corridors besides the spawn room. But even this is an issue, as the G-Force tester spins around and can very quickly kill the player in just one hit. Aside from this though, the majority of the map is very useful, even if it does not accommodate one playstyle into its design and therefore earns a 4 out of 6. Here is where the score probably takes a little bit of a hit, even though the gameplay is not much distinguishable from maps like Derice and Kino. As much as I loved the Thunder Gun, it makes a return in a map where I'd have preferred to have seen a miniature rocket flamethrower instead. To compensate though, two new equipment make a debut that are a very nice switch up from the monkey bombs. The Matryoshka dolls are a very nice upgrade to the standard grenades, dealing much more damage and spawning 3 more child grenades after the initial explosion. If you wanted cluster bombs with a bit of character, this is the equipment for you. If you want something like the monkey bombs but 5 times as effective and 5 times as badass, the Gersh device is what you're looking for. This is probably one of my favourite equipment weapons of all time, literally opening a black hole that sucks in zombies with the most epically satisfying sound ever. I still hate that they changed its sound in Black Ops 3. These two were probably the best kind of equipment you could have in a map, as they functioned very differently and were very characteristic of the genre to include such bizarre and experimental weaponry. 2 new perks were introduced into this map, and both were arguably some of the best perks for different reasons. PhD Flopper allowed you to take 0 self-explosive damage, which allowed you to use explosive weapons without any drawback, and if you dolphin dived from a height that would damage you, it would trigger a massive explosion. Stamina Up allowed you to sprint for much longer and slightly faster, even with heavy weapons, and considering the scale of Ascension, this was exceptionally useful, especially on the monkey rounds. The monkeys were another new shake-up to the special rounds, and definitely not for the better, much like the Pentagon Thief. The one thing that makes these rounds slightly more bearable is they didn't begin unless someone had a perk, so it is possible to save cash to be able to prepare for these rounds before they happened. Even still, the monkey rounds are exceptionally annoying and are why the score for the gameplay will be a lot lower. The monkey's primary objective is to steal your perks, and on a map like Ascension that is so huge, if the monkeys go for a perk on the other side of the map from you, you're definitely likely to lose it. The loss of cash can be anywhere from a measly 1500 points to a whopping 3000, and if they manage to take more than one perk, this can quite easily cripple a run and delay getting better weapons, other perks, and pack-a-punch well into later rounds when they're needed most. In higher rounds, they aren't as bad, as by then you have enough cash to buy 4 perks twice over, but if you're not prepared for these rounds, they can quite easily get you killed. The monkey rounds are even harder with more people as more monkeys spawn, and if you don't have a coordinated team, you're more than likely going to have a few deaths, if not an outright game over in the next few rounds. They are extremely stressful to deal with and not in a fun way. But besides these rounds, the map's gameplay is comparable to Kino and Derice, so even though the monkey rounds hurt the score quite a bit, it still gets a decent 4 out of 6 score. Ascension's replay value unfortunately does not hold up very well, as I mentioned when introducing the map. Sure, you have an Easter egg to complete and 2 new perks and equipment to play around with, however, the monkey rounds really put a strain on my motivation for replaying this map. It's no fun at all to deal with these tiny bastards trying to steal my perks, and preparing for this round is annoying because I have to forego more perks for a few rounds so that I can defend one. Sure, you get a perk if none of the monkeys touch a machine, but that's easier to do in solo if you know what you're doing, not so much in multiplayer. Therefore, although one aspect does majorly hamper the score, Ascension's replayability gets a 4 out of 6. Again, the score comes down to personal preference if all the 4 scores are deadlocked between 2 scores, so therefore Ascension, in my opinion, gets a 4 out of 6. The introduction of 2 new perks and 2 new pieces of equipment almost gave the map a class selection on whether you wanted to be a demolition expert with the Matryoshka dolls and PhD flopper, an all-rounder with the original 4 perks, or a perk defender and support player with quick revive, stamina up, and the Gersh device. Unfortunately, the map suffers from having a shit special round which dampens the whole experience, but nonetheless this was still a decent direction for the zombies formula to go in.
Years ago I did research for a World War II movie. I came across some old Nazi documents. I couldn't believe what I was reading. Element 115, necromancers, raising the dead, real creepy stuff.
We're completely surrounded! Come on!
The coolest thing? Some of that crazy shit happened right here.
Call of the Dead was a massive change to how you had to approach the mode, and you couldn't rely on the traditional camping or training strategies used in other maps prior. This is because the map introduced the first persistent boss into zombies, the legend himself, George Romero, rest his soul. More on him later though, the horror element is something we have to talk about first. Like with all the maps before, Call of the Dead is a map that when everything is quiet, it is quite creepy. The quiet backing track in the background also enhances the silences as well, creating an air of mystique about the surroundings. Speaking of which, your surroundings mainly consist of ice, a big rock, a lighthouse, and a crashed tanker ship. The ice areas are not very creepy or scary as it's just ice. Might prey on somebody's phobia, but I don't know. Though the crashed tanker is quite freaky as it contains cargo and a dining hall with some remnants of food, which similar to 5 gives off Uncanny Valley vibes. But the other parts of the map like the lighthouse get ruined a bit with the knowledge that the crew you play as were shooting a film there. When you have knowledge of what was taking place at a location, it takes the edge away a lot more than not knowing what was going on there. Admittedly, this location is not as scary as previous maps on the list, but when the fog rolls in, it definitely increases the creepiness of what was already there by a large margin. Not being able to see the entire map when you spawn in was also a nice touch this map added, but when the fog goes away, so do some of the horror points this map gets. It does do a good job at making you feel isolated and stranded on a remote island in the middle of nowhere though, especially when you look out at the vastness of the sea from either the lighthouse or the tanker itself. Though that is all I really have to comment on. It's not a masterpiece of horror by any stretch, so it earns a 4 out of 6 for there being some good qualities to it. The map design. Oh boy. There is a singular good training spot on this map, outside the lighthouse. Every other spot is mired by the return of slowdown water or is too small of an area to be effective, like above the office outside the lighthouse where the intro cutscene takes place. Zombie spawns are also ruined on this map, with the zombies climbing the sides of the tanker to get into the map without any way to prevent them from doing this. They also come out of the ground at spawn and in many other parts of the map, completely killing any need to rebuild barriers. Every part of this map is awful to be in because 90% of it is thin corridors and slowdown water. The rest is spawn and outside the lighthouse. It's a poorly designed map to begin with, and this is exacerbated more by the most annoying persistent boss of all time. The only redeeming qualities that prevent it from being the lowest score possible is it's got one semi-viable training spot and a cool jump pad that you can use to get from the tanker to the lighthouse. So therefore, Call of the Dead's map design gets a 2 out of 6. Now for the most interesting part, the gameplay. Overall, I could give the gameplay a better score if this shakeup was done on a better designed map. But unfortunately, with how Call of the Dead is designed, George Romero is too much of a potent threat. He is a persistent boss that spawns into the map in quite an epic display of thunder striking the lake, and slowly emerges from it. From this point, George will slowly stalk the nearest player, and if he's close enough, he will use the spotlight he's carrying to attack. If he successfully hits another player or gets shot while not being in water, he will become fully zombified, electrocute nearby zombies, and sprint after the nearest player. To calm him, he needs to either run into freezing water or be shot by the VR-11 Wonder Weapon. This is its only useful property outside of the Easter egg. What's more, at later rounds, he can speed zombies up to sprinting speed. Everything he does is annoying, and to top it all off, he has an unbelievably high amount of health, to the point where it takes all the ammo from the upgraded Scavenger Wonder Weapon to kill him. If he is killed, he will drop a perk and the Death Machine, and you can tell how much health he has depending on how bright his spotlight is and what color it is flashing. After he is killed, he will return in a couple of rounds to continue his shenanigans. George wouldn't be such a bad boss on a map like Ascension, where you have several training spots to go to if he decides to show up at one you are currently at. But in Call of the Dead, if he shows up by the front of the lighthouse, the only viable training spot, you have to go to a different and more undesirable part of the map lest you want to risk enraging him. So either way, you have to put yourself at a disadvantage for the sake of making sure you don't enrage the biggest threat on the map. I get that he's meant to discourage you from camping, but he also makes training in one spot impossible as well. And considering there aren't any other great spots besides the outside of the lighthouse, it can be exceptionally difficult to play on this map. The monkey bombs make a return to this map, and so do the Matryoshka dolls. It's a shame the Gersh device doesn't return, as the monkeys do basically the same job of distracting zombies, but of less killing power. The VR-11 is probably one of the worst wonder weapons in existence. I mean, seriously, what were they thinking? If you shoot a zombie with this gun, it turns them into human CIA agents who will run screaming to a certain point of the map and then just stand there. They're meant to act as distractions, similarly to monkeys, but the zombie AI just seems to completely ignore them if a player is closer to the zombies than the CIA agent. Its only other gameplay function outside of the Easter egg is to calm George in a pinch, which can be useful, but it takes up a weapon slot that could otherwise be saved for something like the ray gun or the Scavenger. Speaking of, the Scavenger is probably the best sounding and most unique wonder weapon that has been introduced thus far. It's a sniper that shoots explosive bolts that stick to zombies and explode after a delay. The sound of the explosion is so crisp, and it's a shame it gets completely neutered when pack-a-punched. The only other shame of this wonder weapon is it falls off around round 40 and requires 2 explosions to kill zombies. It is, however, the best tool to use for killing George, so it redeems itself a little bit in that regard. Stamina Up and PhD Flopper both return alongside a new introduction, Deadshot Daiquiri. I wish I could say this was a good addition to the mix, but sadly not. What Deadshot does is narrow the hip-fire crosshairs by 35%, moves the aim-assist lock-on location from the torso to the head for consoles, reduces all weapon recoil, and removes the idle sway from snipers. While it does a lot of things, none of them are useful. When compared to reloading at double the speed, firing twice as fast, sprinting faster and for longer, taking no explosive damage, reviving teammates at double the speed, and doubling your health, none of the benefits Deadshot offers quite stands up to the utility provided from other perks. Pack-a-Punch doesn't have a puzzle anymore, and it's more of a waiting game for the machine to be in the desired location you want it. The lighthouse will shine its light where the Pack-a-Punch is, and every location, annoyingly, is in the slowdown water. So it is extremely risky to use and will likely end up getting you down if you use it in the heat of action. The slowdown water in this map is worse than in Shangri-La somehow. If you stand in it for too long, you'll be frozen on the spot, and the only way for you to be thawed out is if you're hit by a zombie or shot by a teammate. I get we're in a freezing cold location, but why even bother putting this in if you're going to disincentivize going in it this much? Why you'd purposefully make at least 50% of your map useless, I don't understand. This feature should have been left in Shangri-La, honestly. One cool little detail though when it comes to this map is if you finish the Easter egg, every death machine you get afterwards will give you the Wunderwaffe DG2, which is nice to see return. It's a neat little reward on top of getting all the perks in the map. So to wrap up the gameplay and give it a score, all of the new additions, the George Romero boss, the Wonder Weapons, and Deadshot were all either extremely bad or disappointing, even if the scavenger was cool. It makes playing on this map more difficult than it already is, with no powerful source of infinite damage unless you complete the Easter egg. So therefore, considering all this, and the fact that George Ruin's the only good training spot on this map, Call of the Dead's gameplay receives a 3 out of 6. I can't say anything good about Call of the Dead's replayability either. If you thought my motivation for playing Ascension again was bad, Call of the Dead is like double that. At least when it comes to the monkeys on Ascension, you can prepare for those. George will spawn in and that's it. You have to deal with him the whole game and juggle him with everything else you have to do. Call of the Dead is unfortunately one massive headache that you have to deal with, and it is constant throughout. Therefore, it gets a pretty lame score of 2 out of 6. For the final holistic score, I just want to mention that I do not understand why people look back fondly on this map. I could be wrong in saying that, but from what I can remember, people quite like this map and I can't really see the appeal. Subpar Wonder Weapons, replacing Gershes with the inferior monkeys, piss-poor map design, a shit new perk, and an annoying boss make for a map I can't understand why people loved so much. My final score for Call of the Dead is a 2 out of 6. Pitiful. I played this map a few times before I wrote this part of the script because I was confused as to why people seemed to take a liking to Shangri-La. Some have said that they like the way this map is designed because you have to use all of it to your advantage, which I can sort of understand. But at the same time, the map's design is so different in a negative way that I genuinely wonder how anybody survives on this map past round 20. And it's not just the map layout that I take issue with either, so let's jump into that. This map isn't scary by any measure. Shangri-La is a map set in the daytime in a lush jungle temple. The surroundings are teeming with life, and there is the occasional flock of birds that will fly overhead. There are zombified monkeys just chilling around the temple area, and there is no sign of anything here besides a mining operation, but that's all. Compared to a map like Verrückt, where I feel genuinely trapped and the only thing I can do is stand my ground and fight, Shangri-La, by comparison, feels like I could scale a tree or some vines and I'd probably find some relative safety. The only points I can really give to this map is its feeling of isolation, as the map is depicted atop a mountain range, but even that doesn't feel all too scary considering how lively the map looks. For a comparison to a similar lush green setting that nails horror better than this map, I only have to point to Shangri-La. That map, while having green as its primary colour, has a much more bleak and dull tone to it compared to Shang, which has a much more vibrant and garish colour palette. Shang is almost comparable to a theme park in some ways, and funnily enough, this comment also links into its gameplay and map design. The other thing I can do to prove how goofy Shangri-La appears is by comparing it to a part of the Easter egg where there is a solar eclipse. That version of the map has a massive Element 115 meteorite sticking out the top of the temple, and the entire map's colour palette shifts from a vibrant green to a lunar blue. It's such a contrast to the regular colours of the map, which also gives me the complete opposite feeling. Shang during the solar eclipse is what it should have been by default, and it's a shame that it's only connected to the Easter egg and lasts temporarily. Because of this, the map does not earn a very high score in the horror department, a measly 2 out of 6. The map design is very questionable. Every path, every turn, every bend, every tunnel, every corner of this map is exceptionally thin. Worse still, the map is laden with traps and silly mechanics that do more to get you killed than actually help you. If you don't walk through the spike trap at spawn quick enough, it will trap you between the spikes and ring a dinner bell for the zombies to come and eat you. The stupid mudroom that sends you down a randomized path will sometimes rotate you back to where you came from, and if you don't want to go that way, you're shit out of luck, bud, because either you'll run back into a horde of zombies or be left to trudge through, you guessed it, more fucking slowdown terrain! Only with this particular terrain, you will move at the speed of a walking zombie, whilst the zombies are only slowed by 1 speed state, so they can still jog through it and maul you to death. Thankfully, this is not jotted everywhere around the map, though it is a crucial part of one of the paths, and you won't be able to use the water slide unless you go through this room. Speaking of, remember how I said this map feels like a theme park? Well, you have water geysers around the map that will shoot you up from the tunnels back to the surface, a fucking water slide from the surface to the underground, and a minecart roller coaster that takes you from the surface to the underground as well. This map is fucking awful. Oh yeah! There are quite literally 0 camping spots and training spots on this map. None! At all! And to make an already tightly knit map worse, the zombies come from barriers, from the walls, from the floor, even from the fucking ceiling. Every aspect of Shangri-La's map design is atrocious, and I'm so glad that it never returns after this point. 1 out of 6, never want to see this shit again. The gameplay is more of a hit or miss, but like with George from Call of the Dead, if these gameplay elements were on a more spacious map, I wouldn't be complaining. There are 3 boss-type enemies on this map, one of them is a persistent threat, and the other 2 come into play intermittently. The monkeys make a return, unfortunately without their cute little spacesuits. Their objective this time is to steal your power-ups and bring them to where Pack-a-Punch is so you can't grab them. This version of the monkeys, annoying as they are, have some useful benefits to them if you're skilled enough of a player. If you grab the power-up before the monkeys do, one will still come after you. If you knife that monkey, he will give you 500 points, which is a ton of cash, especially when you get 1000 on double points. It makes setting up on this map pretty easy and quick, though if you get a power-up you don't want, you can let the monkey grab it. He will then run back to spawn, but as he does, the power-up changes every couple of seconds. Wait until he's changed it to the one you want, shoot the bugger, and there you have it. A max ammo instead of a nuke. The only problem with this boss is you can't walk through him, so if you're running a bit of a train and you don't see the little shit run in front of you, you're gonna eat a whole ass game over. The other 2 bosses are the Inferno Zombie and the Screamer, both having their positives and negatives. They're a bit of a yin and yang boss. One is super fast, one is really slow. Both explode when killed, which also damages other zombies, except with the Inferno Zombie he leaves flames where he died that act kind of like a trap. The Screamer isn't as deadly as the Inferno Zombie, but I guess that is to balance him out with his mobility. Both bosses announce themselves when they spawn and don't take much to kill, which is nice. They don't provide any bonus points when killed, but they are more likely to spawn power-ups. They're quite a nice addition to the frame, and it's a shame that they only make an appearance on this map, as I'd have loved to see them implemented in future ones. No new perks this time around, but all the previous ones make a return, so nothing to really comment on there. The only new thing of note weapon-wise is the baby gun wonder weapon. When fired, it turns zombies into mini people, and you can kick them to kill them. It's a source of infinite damage, so that's pretty good, but it can sometimes be inconsistent. If you don't run fast enough into the zombies, you'll stop dead in your tracks, and the zombies will hit you. Although it does half the normal damage, having a big group of small zombies hitting you can put you down just as fast as a few regular ones. So it's a bit of a hit or miss wonder weapon sometimes, even if it can kill infinitely. Pack-a-Punch's puzzle is questionably strange in the way that it works. Around the map are 4 square stone slabs that, if stood on, raise the stairs to Pack-a-Punch for a limited time. In solo, all you have to do is find one slab and stand on it, then sprint to spawn to access the machine. So far so good, until you look at how it functions in multiplayer. If you play with an uncoordinated team, you're never gonna see the Pack-a-Punch machine. The puzzle requires all 4 players to be standing on top of these slabs simultaneously for the stairs to be raised. Why? Because fuck you, we're going to make an unnecessarily difficult map even harder. At least the map's gameplay is a marked change from Call of the Dead, but it's still different from previous maps in the fact there's literally no place to camp or train. I guess you can say that it is a decent challenge for hardcore players who want to put their skills to the test, but in a mode that leaned more towards casual zombie killing fun, Shangri-La entices feelings of frustration rather than excitement. Therefore, the gameplay score for this map is a 2 out of 6. To sum it up, it has some neat additions that are just difficult to fully enjoy on such a poorly designed and relentlessly difficult map. That leaves us with replayability. This map was clearly designed in a way that you cannot simply boot it up and switch your mind off while playing it. It was tailor-made so that it included zero room to utilize areas designed for specific playstyles. Every potential area for camping is marred by barriers everywhere, and every square inch of the map is designed like a corridor to prevent training, but is interconnected enough to give the illusion that it isn't just a bunch of corridors when in reality, it is. Even the signature wonder weapon of this map encourages you to stay on the fly and never be in one spot too long. It's a gruelingly difficult map that is designed specifically to get you killed and not in a fun way in my opinion. So coming back to it more often than not surfaces feelings of anguish rather than joy. My replayability score for Shangri-La gets a 2 out of 6. This map was always the one I'd look to last if I was bored with every other map. If none of the other maps were screaming at me from Black Ops 1 because I'd played them so much, Shangri-La was the go-to, and that is not a good thing. It's a map you'd boot up if you had nothing else to play, and to me that already screams volumes about how good it is. And considering all the other scores, they average out to give this map a pretty low 2 out of 6. Where Call of the Dead had some sort of redeeming qualities in the fact it was way more open by comparison, Shang is just too much of a headache to play considering how enclosed it is, even if the scenery makes it out to be bigger than it is. I've been excited to get to this map because Moon is probably my personal favourite, even if it is a bit of a hit or miss within the zombies community. I understand there are some things within it that are somewhat unfun to deal with, and those will be addressed, but I don't feel Moon does much wrong besides very specific things. It adds its own unique shake-up to the pace of the gameplay, which is fun, and it adds a few returning unique enemies that are altered slightly in how they function. There's also a boss zombie that can be a bit annoying to deal with, but I feel it's decently balanced. Moon has a lot of great qualities I feel are left unappreciated, and I want to bring light to those as well as other qualities that make it stand out from the previous maps thus far. Talking about the horror element on Moon requires 4 parts I'm going to try to keep as brief as possible. Area 51 pre-Easter egg is chaotic on purpose. It throws continuous amounts of zombies and dogs at you with loud sirens blaring, thunder going off everywhere, and the entire place looking a bit too pristine and bright, which adds a layer of mystery to it. The wide stretch of base that you cannot access restricts in-depth exploration to figure out what is happening and why, which adds another layer of mystery. Though the main purpose of Area 51 is to serve as a chaotic get-to-the-chopper segment before you're teleported to the juxtaposingly quiet, serene, gloomy, and peaceful atmosphere of the moon. The moon itself is the definition of a feeling of isolation. It nails other aspects of maps exceptionally well too. Several rooms have clear theming and indications of experimentation and abandonment. The map is quiet in all but the breathing sounds coming from the helmet and the muffled sound of whatever is happening outside of it. There's continuous white noise out in space in areas without oxygen, and even when there is oxygen, it makes you feel trapped within the confines of the facility. The biodome is especially creepy as it tries to simulate life on the moon when all there is plants that help provide oxygen in various locations. The growth of moss as well within some of the ventilation systems is also jarring and contrary to the dreary greys of the environment around you. There are other aspects too, like the vast openness of space and the rest of the moon being lifeless, giving a sense of isolation. But for the sake of time, I'll sum it up to say that Moon is a 6 out of 6 for horror already. But that gets vastly amped with the Easter egg. After blowing up the Earth, you're already terrified to go back, wondering what horrors await or if there's even anything left to go back to. That feeling of isolation is upped tenfold, knowing the majority of life on Earth is likely obliterated by such a cataclysmic event. And when you do go back, Area 51 is even more chaotic than before. Meteorites are flying across the skybox is of space, everything is on fire, a red haze and colour palette lather the map. It is genuinely horrifying and scary, and I wish I could give this map a 7 out of 6 for horror, but I'd have to stick with a 6 out of 6 for consistency. The map design has some quirks, but it's otherwise pretty solid. Area 51 is just asking you to train in it, but the teleporter also makes for a pretty decent camping spot. The starting room is nice and open enough to make training in it somewhat possible. The outside of spawn is useful as a training spot if you're good enough. The two tunnels are tunnels. You can do some training midway through Tunnel 11, but Tunnel 6 is just don't go there. The Pyramid Room, where power is, can be a decent training spot. The labs are a bit cramped, but if you tried hard enough, you could survive in them. And the two best training spots, the Biodome and outside by the teleporter, are top quality training spots. Almost every single part of this map caters to some form of playstyle, albeit it clearly favours training more than camping. But the fact that we went from two maps almost having no areas of use to an entire map that is extremely fun to play on everywhere, I'd say that's good map design. Training in the Biodome is one of my all-time favourite spots just because of how massive and scary it can be. There are zombies coming from all sides and you're dodging and weaving between many zombies in a nicely arranged and intertwined path that makes for endless fun. I will say though that zombies on this map spawn from fucking everywhere, and I can understand why, but it's as though the mode forgot about barriers, and there is a criticism I have of this in the gameplay section. The only criticism I have of the map design is the lunar landers. These are the worst designed gimmick I have ever seen. You can literally put yourself down if you miss a pad. Why they didn't disable fall damage from these is a complete mystery to me, seeing as they're meant to serve as an escape and not as a means of killing yourself, even for one single power-up. But other than that, Moon's map design is scrumptious and gets a solid 5 out of 6. The only area in which Moon suffers somewhat is in its gameplay. There are 3 excavators that, when the power is turned on, will randomly activate on a given round. Only one can activate at a time, but if not dealt with, all the excavators can be active at the same time. The excavators are assigned to drill into their respective areas, and the base comms will announce which location an excavator is heading to. It doesn't matter too much if an excavator destroys an area, as all that happens is you lose oxygen in the area that's drilled, but you tend to have the spacesuit on 90% of the time anyway. It's more for convenience sake than it is for anything gameplay changing. The only problem occurs when two excavators are drilling into both tunnels at the same time, as if you teleport to Area 51 without the hacker and you return to the moon, the other half of the map is inaccessible because the excavators block both entrances to the power room, and if you walk into them, you'll die. The excavators do incentivize you to shut them down if for the sake of not having the situation occur, but also because they award a sizable amount of points for shutting them off. This is where I now talk about a piece of equipment that I wish was in more maps going forward. The hacker has many uses. It is a pouch containing various tools that you can use to do many things with, such as open doors for a fraction of their cost, return perks to get your money back, instantly rebuild barriers for more points, shutting off the excavators for 1,000 points, and being able to respin the box or grant another player a weapon you rolled for. It's a multi-tool that's extremely useful, but asks you to replace your spacesuit, making it only useful in certain scenarios. It can turn opening doors into a bit of a defense minigame where you defend the person opening the door, and it can also be useful to respec your perks into a different combination. The only way it's useless really is with barriers. Sure, we build barriers for a few extra points we might need on the fly, but this function of the hacker, where it builds all the barriers instantly, is not only great for gaining points, but it would be exceptionally useful on maps like Verrucht or Nacht, where barrier upkeep is imperative to survival. And rebuilding the barriers instantly is useful, but only if the zombies don't also spawn within the bounds of the map, like the teleporting Nova Crawlers can do in the labs. Oh yeah, they're back and they can teleport now. I wish the hacker tool was on a map that wasn't Moon, but it is still a cool piece of equipment nonetheless, and seeing as only one person can have it at a time, it again plays into the different kinds of classes you could theoretically achieve in the mode. The main boss zombie, the Spaceman, is a bit like George Romero if he was balanced properly. He'll spawn into the moon portion of the map and slowly stalk players. If he grabs you, he will hold you in place for a couple of seconds, headbutt you, steal a perk, red screen you, and teleport you to a random location within the accessible bounds. He sounds like a very unfair boss, but he is also so easy to kill that it kinda makes up for how brutal he can be. He isn't deadly on his own, but with a group of zombies around him, he can be pretty terrifying. I feel this is the only instance in which a persistent boss is done right. The last shake-up I have to mention is Area 51. If you're smart and quick enough, you could have Jug or Speed Cola and a couple of 1,000 points before you even begin round 1. Jug or Speed Cola spawns in Area 51 in the beginning, and they rotate every time you return to this area. The only issue with this is if you lose Jug, you're going to have to go to Area 51 and back twice before you can get it again, and this can be tough, especially at higher rounds. Pack-a-Punch resides in Area 51, and there is quite literally no puzzle to it. They just give it to you this time around. It does lead to some choice though. At the start of the game, you can either pack-a-punch your starting pistols or get a perk and some extra points. It's an interesting choice that can be afforded to the player, though I'm sure anyone would take Jug over pack-a-punch starting pistols, especially when explosive damage can decompress several areas of the map, leaving them without oxygen. It is exceptionally easy to set up on this map, but I feel this is somewhat balanced out by the sheer amount of hazards and challenges you have to juggle, like the excavators, Area 51, the Spaceman, and of course the air itself. The dual zap guns are the wonder weapon of this map and are an infinite source of damage in either form, but when combined together they act more like your traditional wonder weapon, killing a large train in one trigger press, inflating zombies until they pop like balloons. I don't know why they made it so the electricity from the dual wield form doesn't spread to at most 2 other zombies, but it's still an insta-kill nonetheless. Though I always found the combined form to be very inconsistent. You have to shoot it next to a horde of zombies so the projectile whizzes past the train, tagging all the zombies to be inflated, rather than the small explosion being an AoE that tags all the zombies within it to inflate. It makes no sense how this works, and it's very inconsistent at times. Otherwise, it's the most unique wonder weapon design-wise out of them all so far. The Gersh devices make a return, yes, next to a new special grenade, the QEDs. These, much like the hacker, have several properties. They can spawn a gun to continuously shoot in a circle, produce a shockwave, explode, summon more zombies, spawn a gun, turn into a Semtex, give you more points, give you another perk, reset your points, revive a teammate, down you for no reason, spawn a power-up, give you more QEDs, teleport you, turn the astronaut friendly, turn zombies into CIA agents, revert your pack-a-punched weapon, make zombies sprint, spawn anti-power-ups that does the opposite of normal power-ups, spawn Gershes, duds. It does a lot of things, but the most important thing is it can recall excavators without the need to hack them. Fuck you, excavators. Moon's gameplay is a whirlwind, even if it has some undesirable quirks to it that make it a bit shit sometimes. But it is that enjoyable that the score remains a decent 5 out of 6. Replayability for Moon is also somewhat of a no-brainer. QEDs make it so that literally every run is different, and the hacker can be used in such a variety of ways that every run of Moon plays out vastly different from the next. It's easy to set up on, but challenging throughout, and throws things at you to keep your mind somewhat engaged enough, but not too beyond the point of nauseating and strainful. Moon is a nice balance of everything, and it's well within its right to earn a 6 out of 6 in the replayability category. So this then leaves us with the overall score. Stuck between a 5 out of 6 and a 6 out of 6, I do have to acknowledge this map has small issues that tinker with what would be a perfect score. So to acknowledge this, I'm giving this map a 5 out of 6. Perhaps if some of the irritant features were toned down a little to have less of an impact on the map as a whole, Moon could theoretically be a 6 out of 6. But because of some of these annoyances, I'm looking at you, Excavators and Jug, it can sometimes be an unnecessarily grueling task to play if you get a bad roll of the dice. Nevertheless, it's a great map and a certified undead classic.